Preeti Agarwal from Army Public School, Noida. I'm PGT Bio. And children, you must have noticed that there are some characters that you inherit from your parents, like the color of your eye, the texture of your hair, and the shape of your nose. So these are a few characters you must have seen that you inherit from your parents. And all cousins also look alike, and therefore you know that there are some characters that you inherit from your grandparents also. And you must be wondering, how is it so that all cousins in few characters they look alike? It's because the characters have traveled from one generation to another generation, and these traits or characters are called as inherited traits or characters. Now, inherited traits or characters, they are governed by genes. That means the expression of genes give these traits or characters. Now, these genes, the concept of genes was not really understood by the scientists, though Mendel gave us the laws of inheritance, but the concept of gene was not understood by the scientists for a long time. And it was Watson and Crick who gave the structure, the double helical structure of DNA, and therefore the finding of DNA is a landmark in the study of genetics, because the insight into the DNA structure answered many questions which were not answered for eons. And Crick also gave us the central dogma. That means he told us that the flow of information, genetic information, is unidirectional. That means from DNA to RNA, and from RNA to proteins. Now, proteins are responsible for the characters that appear. So, the phenotypic characters or the observable characters are due to these proteins. These proteins can be structural proteins, they can be enzymes which lead to certain colors. For example, skin color. You have a great gradation in skin color, and these are because the skin color is governed by more than one gene. All right. So today we are going to study that how the codes from the DNA get transferred or get expressed as mRNA, and the process is called as transcription. So children, let us study about transcription. So you see the central dogma here, where you are going to see the DNA. This is what Francis and Crick gave us, that the central dogma for molecular biology is a phrase that was given by Francis Crick, who proposed the double helical structure of DNA. It means that the information passes from DNA to proteins via RNA. But proteins cannot pass the information back to DNA. So that is why I said that the flow of information, genetic information, is unidirectional from DNA to RNA, and from RNA it translates to form proteins. So today we are going to study that the process of transcription, how the codes that are present in the DNA, they get transferred to the RNA. Now let's see what is the definition of transcription. The cellular process in which RNA is synthesized using DNA as a template is known as transcription. So DNA gets transcribed to RNA. Since RNA is the product, RNA is formed, so we have to study the structure of RNA. We should know what RNA is like. So RNA, the structure of RNA is a typically single-stranded and is made up of ribonucleotides. So what are the monomers of the RNA? It is the ribonucleotides. The ribonucleotides in RNA chain contains the ribose sugar, and one of the four nitrogenous bases, that is adenine, guanine, uracil and cytosine, and a phosphate group. The relative instability of RNA makes it more suitable for its more short-term functions. The RNA-specific pyrimidine, that is uracil, forms a complementary base pair with adenine and is used instead of thymine, which is used in DNA. Even though RNA is single-stranded, most types of RNA molecules show extensive intramolecular base pairing between complementary sequences within the RNA strand, creating a predictable three-dimensional structure essential for their function. Now you'll see this all in a diagram. Now see the difference between the DNA and the RNA. What is the difference between the DNA and the RNA? You see, first of all, very clearly you can see that the DNA is double-stranded, whereas RNA is single-stranded. Then the DNA is made up of ribose sugar, but at the second carbon it is devoid of an oxygen atom here. That is why it is called as deoxyribose. Whereas the RNA is made up of ribose sugar. Alright. So you see in the second carbon there is a oxygen there. So this is the ribose sugar, and here the oxygen is not there, that is why it's deoxyribose. Then you will see that the nitrogenous base pairs, three are common in both, that is cytosine, guanine and adenine. What is different? In DNA you have thymine, and in case of RNA you have uracil. So what is the complementary base pairing? Adenine will pair with uracil and guanine will pair with cytosine. So adenine pairs up with uracil and gets complementary base pairing with the attachment of two hydrogen bonds. Now RNA is a polymer of ribonucleotides held together by a 3'5' phosphodiester bridge and are single stranded, like we saw in the diagram before that RNA is single stranded. It is the only molecule known to function in the storage of genetic information, transmission of genetic information, and is also behaves as a catalyst. All RNAs except the RNA genomes of certain viruses are derived from the information which is stored permanently in the DNA. So the central dogma is true for most of the organisms except the organisms in which the genetic material is RNA. Now we'll see the types of RNA. The three major kinds of RNAs are the mRNA, which are about 5 to 10% in the cell, and they transfer information of gene to ribosomes, that is encodes the amino acid sequences. So the mRNA are also called as the messenger RNA because they take the codes from the nucleus in eukaryotes. In eukaryotes, they are taking the codes from the DNA to the cytoplasm, and therefore they transfer information from gene to ribosome. Now in case of prokaryotes, since there is no nucleus, so it is in the cytosol itself. The tRNA is also called as the transfer RNA, and they're about 10 to 20%. They are able to read the codes on the mRNA and transfer the appropriate amino acid to the messenger RNA. So the transfer RNA has, on one end it has the amino acid joined to it, and in the anticodon loop it is able to read the codes that are present on the mRNA. Now the ribosomal RNA, there are about 60 to 80% of ribosomal RNA, and they constituents of the ribosome. They, with some proteins, they make up the ribosome, and some of the rRNA also behave as enzyme. All right, which is responsible for the formation of peptide bond during the translation process. So they are catalytic in function. Now, if you see the messenger RNA, you see how it is a single stranded with nitrogenous base pairs which are not paired, all right. And then you see a ribosomal RNA which are a constituent of the ribosome. With some proteins they form the ribosome, and some of the ribosome also, the additional function is the ribosomal RNA also behave as enzyme, the peptidyl enzyme. Okay, now transfer RNA. Can you see the transfer RNA here? And you see that on one end of the transfer RNA, amino acid is attached, and they have specific anticodons which recognize the codes that are present on the mRNA. Now, in replication, the entire DNA molecule is normally copied. That means when you study replication, you know once the replication process starts, then the entire genome of the entire genome gets replicated, right? In transcription, but the transcription is different. Transcription, a particular gene or a group of genes are copied at one time, at any time, and some portions of DNA are never transcribed. These are heterochromatin regions which are never transcribed. So there are some euchromatin regions of DNA which are transcribed, and that too all the transcription does not start and end altogether. Only a particular gene or a protein that is required by the cell, only that is transcribed. Now, what is gene? Gene is a segment of DNA that codes for a type of protein or RNA. So the gene can code for protein, and it can also code for an RNA, and it may be present on any strand of DNA. So it can be present on any strand of the DNA. All right. So gene is a segment of DNA that codes for a type of protein, or it can code for RNA also. Now let us study the difference between replication and transcription. Now for replication, the template is both the strands. Both the strands, the replication starts together. Whereas in transcription, it is single stranded and only a small portion of the genome gets transcribed. Now, is the primer required? Yes, in replication, primers are required. But in the process of transcription, no primers are required. The enzyme products. The enzyme products, the enzymes are that is required here is DNA polymerase for replication, and the RNA polymerase for the transcription. Now the product after replication is a double stranded. This DS stands for double stranded DNA, and SS stands for single stranded RNA. So after transcription, what will be the product you will get? You will get a single stranded RNA, whereas after replication you will get double stranded DNA. Now base pairs that are present in the DNA are adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. Adenine binds to thymine with 2 hydrogen bonds, and guanine binds with cytosine with 3 hydrogen bonds. But in case of the transcription, the adenine will combine with uracil with 2 hydrogen bonds, and the thymine will combine with adenosine, and guanosine will combine with cytosine. So these in case of the RNA, the thymine is not present, instead of which uracil is present. Okay. Now proofreading. Does proofreading take place? Yes. In replication, DNA polymerase itself does the proofreading once the replication is over. But in transcription, is there a proofreading? No, there is no proofreading in transcription. Now the question is that we are saying that only one strand of DNA transcribes to form the RNA. The question is why both the strands are not copied during transcription. And this is a very important question vis-a-vis your paper and your knowledge too. The first reason is that if both the strands of DNA act as template, they would code for an RNA molecule with different sequences but complementary to each other, and therefore what will happen, they will form a double stranded, two RNAs will be formed, that will form a double stranded RNA. So this is the second point I've just told you. And the first point, it says that if two RNAs are formed, they will have they are not identical mRNAs that will be formed because the complementary base pairing is there. So different amino acids will join to form different polypeptide chain, and as a result different proteins will be formed, and that will complicate the genetic information transfer machinery. So these are the two reasons. The first reason stated is that if both strands transcribe, two mRNAs will be formed. If two mRNAs will be formed, they have different codes on them. They will form different amino acids and polypeptides and different proteins. So it will create a havoc in the cell. And the energy is also wasted by the cell in producing proteins which are not required. Now the second one is that if two RNA molecules are produced, they are complementary to each other, and therefore they will join and form a double-stranded RNA, and this kind of a double-stranded RNA would not be able to translate and form protein. So therefore both the strands of DNA do not transcribe, only one strand of DNA transcribes. Now the features of transcription. Let us understand the features of transcription. Uh, Transcription, it is highly selective. That means, what does it mean? It means that at a present or at a given time, the requirement of the cell may be for a particular protein, say a protein A. Then only that gene that codes for that protein will be transcribed, so that the cell do not waste energy in producing proteins which are not required by the cell at that time. Okay, so it is highly selective process. This selectivity is due to signals embedded in the nucleotide sequence of DNA. Specific sequences mark the beginning and the end of DNA segment which is to be transcribed. This signal instructs the enzyme. Which enzyme? We studied the RNA polymerase, that where to start and stop the transcription, when to start. So where to start, and the second important thing is when to start. When the cell requires it, only then it will give a signal that you start transcribing this protein. Okay, so when to start and how often to start. That means if the requirement of protein is more in the cell, then the number of transcripts found will be more. If the requirement is less, then the number of transcription done will be less for the mRNA. Have you understood this? Now the next point is, many of the RNA transcripts are synthesized as precursors. Precursors means that they are primary transcripts. That means they are not functional. Then after modifications and trimmings, they get they get functional RNA. So sometimes RNA are transcribed which are precursors or primary transcripts, and after certain processes that they become functional RNA. Now let us see what is the site of transcription. Where does the transcription take place? Now in prokaryotes, there is no nucleus. So the RNA, all RNAs are formed in the cytoplasm of the cell. Whereas in eukaryotes, there are two places where the transcription takes place. It can take place in the nucleus, and it can take place in the mitochondria. Now mitochondria, because mitochondria, has its own cell machinery, that is why mitochondria. Otherwise nucleus. Now nucleolus, in the nucleus nucleolus transcribes for the rRNA, and nucleoplasm transcribes for tRNA and mRNA. So where the transcription for a particular RNA takes place is also very specific. Where in the nucleus? Nucleolus, rRNA, nucleoplasm, tRNA and mRNA. Now we come to the most important part of the transcription, that what is the transcription unit made up of. The transcription unit is made up of a promoter, a structural gene and a terminator. So here in the diagram you are able to see that these are the two strands of DNA which are anti-parallel to each other. The first one is 3' to 5' and the other strand is 5' to 3'. Now there are two regions, the promoter region and the terminator region. And this is the transcription start site. That means the transcription will start from this region. And this is the structural gene, and these structural genes are present on the template strand, and the other strand is called as the coding strand. Now let's understand this more in detail, the transcriptional unit. Now if you see the transcriptional unit, you will see that the transcription start site is here, and just before the transcription start site you have some sequences which are forming the promoter. Because they are uh, before the start site, they are called upstream. Because they are present before these sequences are present before the start or site of the transcription, they are called as upstream, and rest of the sequences, whether it is structural genes or terminator sequences, they are downstream. So what demarcates the upstream downstream? The start site of the transcription demarcates it. From the start site, the sequences which are present before that are called upstream, and after that are called as downstream. Now, another important thing is that the RNA polymerase can transcribe only in one direction, that is 5' to 3' direction, and therefore the strand of DNA which is 3' to 5' can work as a template strand. Because only this strand will give a RNA transcript in the direction 5' to 3'. The other strand is called as the non-template strand. Can you see this? It's called as a non-template strand, or it is also called as the RNA coding region or coding strand. Why is it called the coding strand? Because the codes of this strand is similar to the RNA that is formed, and that's because of complementary base pairing. All right. So the strand on which the RNA is formed is called as a template strand, and the other strand, that is the strand which direction of 5' to 3' is called as the coding strand or the non-template strand. Now the conventions in defining the strands of DNA. Now another thing is that the promoter and the terminator region. The promoter and the terminator region, the reference points of promoter and the terminator region are given with reference to the coding strand. So we say the promoter region is at the 5' end of the DNA, and the terminator region is the 3' end, because we are taking the coding strand as a reference point. Now, conventions in defining the two strands of the DNA in the structural gene of a transcription unit. Since the two strands of DNA have opposite polarity and the DNA-dependent RNA polymerase also catalyzes polymerization in only one direction, that is 5' to 3', the strand that has a polarity of 3' to 5' acts as a template strand and is also called as acts as a template and is also called as a template strand. The other strand, which has the polarity of 5' to 3', and the sequence is the same as the RNA, except that the thymine gets replaced by uracil, is uh, uh, is displaced during transcription. Strangely, this strand, which does not code for anything, is referred to as coding strand, and all the reference point while defining a transcription unit is made with the coding strand. Now, promoter and terminator. The promoter is said to be located at the 5' end upstream. Now, you've understood why 5' end, 5' end of the coding strand. Why upstream? Because these sequences of the promoter are before the start site of the transcription start site of the structural gene. The reference is made with respect to the polarity of the coding strand. These concepts are very important. Based on these concepts only, questions are asked on the board exam. It is a DNA sequence that provides binding site for the RNA polymerase, and it is the presence of a promoter in a transcription unit that also defines the template and coding strands. If you switch, by switching its position with terminator, the defining of the coding and the template strands could be reversed. If you switch the sites of terminator and promoter gene, then the coding and the template strands also get reversed. The terminator is located at the 3' end downstream. You know why downstream? Because they are beyond the start site of the transcription of the coding strand, because coding strand is always taken as the referral strand to refer to terminator and promoter genes, and is usually defines the end of the process of transcription. So promoter is important because promoter gene will it promoter gene is the place where the RNA polymerase comes and attaches itself. Now, transcription, the prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. Though the basic biochemistry of RNA synthesis is similar both in prokaryotes and eukaryotes, but its regulation is more complex in eukaryotes. Now, eukaryotes as such is complex. It is more evolved than prokaryotes, so obviously the processes are also a little more different from the prokaryotes, but the basic biochemistry of RNA synthesis remains the same in prokaryotes as well as the eukaryotes. Then the RNA synthesis in prokaryotes is catalyzed by a large enzyme which is also called as DNA polymerase, or because DNA polymerase sits on the DNA template, that is why it is called as DNA dependent RNA polymerase or RNA polymerase. A single enzyme RNA polymerase synthesizes all types of cellular RNAs in prokaryotes. So in prokaryotes, there is a single RNA polymerase which will transcribe all the three types of RNA, that is the mRNA, the tRNA and the rRNA. Now, the RNA polymerase uses one of the DNA strand as a template on which complementary ribonucleotides are incorporated to synthesize the RNA. Now, let us see the three steps, the steps that help in the transcription in prokaryotes. So, what are the three steps? The first one is initiation phase, then the elongation phase and the termination phase. Now, what happens in the initiation phase? So, as you must have presumed, the RNA polymerase recognizes the promoter genes and they connect there and start the transcription. So, this is called as the initiation phase. Then elongation phase. What is elongation? The RNA strand is continuously growing. And termination phase, the RNA polymerase, when it comes across the terminator genes, it stops the synthesis and the nascent RNA is separated from the DNA template. Now let us see the process of transcription in prokaryotes. Now you can see this brown colored structure which represents the RNA polymerase, and this RNA polymerase recognizes the promoter region and it joins there. Now, RNA polymerase is an enzyme which has the capability for elongation, that is for addition of ribonucleotides, but it does not have the ability to initiate the process or terminate the process of transcription. Now, to help it to initiate the process of transcription, you need to have initiation factors. So here we have an initiation factor which is called as the sigma factor. Now this sigma factor, when it joins with the RNA polymerase, it recognizes the promoter sequences and attaches and starts the process of transcription. Now it also helps the double strands of the DNA to open up to form a bubble, right? Can you see that the DNA strand where transcription has to take place? It has the hydrogen bonds have broken up and the nitrogenous base pairs are exposed, isn't it? So this bubble is formed. Now this bubble also is formed due to RNA polymerase. Now you see elongation. Now for elongation, RNA polymerase does not need the sigma factor. So you can see the sigma factor is separated and RNA polymerase goes ahead with the elongation process by keep adding. It keeps adding the ribonucleotides and the RNA is being formed. Now let's come to termination. Now, when the RNA polymerase comes across the terminator region or terminator sequences, again, it does not have the capability to terminate the process of transcription, and therefore it requires some factors. Now here there is a rho factor. This rho factor, when it attaches with the RNA polymerase, it is able to understand that now I have to stop the process of termination, and therefore then the process of termination stops, the RNA is released, and also the RNA polymerase with the rho factor gets separated out from the DNA. So here is the initiation phase. This is in detail. You can see how the RNA polymerase and the sigma factor, they are joining to understand, to initiate the process of the transcription. Then here is the elongation. Here you see the sigma factors out. The RNA polymerase no longer requires the sigma factor. So RNA polymerases uses the nucleoside triphosphates as substrates and polymerizes in a template dependent fashion. Why template dependent fashion? So the nitrogenous bases that is going to be forming the mRNA will depend upon the nitrogenous bases that are exposed in case of the template strand of the DNA. Okay. And then comes the terminating phase. Once the polymerases reaches the terminator region, it associates transiently with termination factor rho to terminate the transcript. Now the nascent RNA falls. Can you see? The all this gets separated the moment it comes to the terminator region. The RNA falls out, and the rho factor and the polymerase, RNA polymerase, also gets separated. This results in the termination of the transcription. So now children, we are going to see.
Transcription is the first step in the expression of a gene. It is the formation of a specific RNA sequence from a specific DNA sequence. Transcription initiation occurs at a promoter, a region on the DNA, where RNA polymerase binds. RNA polymerase attaches to the promoter and begins to unwind the DNA. At the initiation site, the polymerase begins reading the DNA template strand and building a complementary RNA strand from free nucleoside triphosphates. The RNA strand grows by the addition of these substrate molecules to its 3' end. This is the elongation phase of transcription. Note that the bases in the nucleotides of the RNA strand form pairs with the bases in the DNA strand. Also, note that the RNA nucleotides contain the sugar ribose, which has a 2' hydroxyl group, whereas the DNA nucleotides contain the sugar deoxyribose, which lacks this hydroxyl group. RNA polymerase functions similarly to DNA polymerase. It adds nucleotides to the 3' hydroxyl group of the last nucleotide. The DNA double helix rewinds as the RNA polymerase moves through. Like the unwinding, the rewinding is an energy-requiring process that is accomplished by RNA polymerase. When RNA polymerase reaches the termination site, the RNA transcript is released from the template. The DNA rewinds completely, and the RNA polymerase dissociates from it. The DNA and RNA polymerase can then participate in other rounds of transcription.
Okay, I hope you must have understood by seeing the video, the process of transcription. Now, transcription in prokaryotes. In bacteria, the mRNA does not require any processing to become active. Transcription and translation takes place in the same compartment. There is no separation of cytosol and nucleus in bacteria. Many times the translation can begin much before the mRNA is fully transcribed. Consequently, the transcription and translation can be coupled in bacteria. So if you see this diagram, children, if you see this diagram, what you see is that this is a prokaryotic cell. Can you see here? This is a prokaryotic cell, and you see that this is the transcription bubble from where the RNA is being transcribed. And in case of prokaryotes, the mRNA is a functional mRNA. So the moment the mRNA is being formed, you can see the ribosomes have already started forming the polynucleotides. You can see these blue structures, these are polynucleotides. All right. So in case of prokaryotes, there is no transfer of mRNA because mRNA is being formed in the cytoplasm itself, and it's being coupled with the process of translation. You can see the moment the mRNA is being formed, the translation process is also started and the polypeptide is being formed. Whereas in eukaryotes, you see what is the difference in eukaryotes? In eukaryotes, there is a nucleus and there is a cytoplasm. Now, the mRNA is formed in the nucleus and it is not a functional mRNA. It is called as the heterogeneous nuclear RNA. Now, this undergoes processing. It undergoes processing to form a functional mRNA. This functional mRNA, when it comes out into the cytoplasm, then the translation starts, and you can see the mRNA. You have polyribosomes. You have ribosomes present which are forming the polynucleotides. So this is how this is the difference between the transcription process that's happening in the prokaryotes and the transcription that is happening in the eukaryotic cell. Now, transcription unit and the gene. Now, let's discuss the gene. What is gene? It is a segment of DNA is called as the gene, which codes for. Now, the gene codes for both. It can code for a protein, it can code for mRNA, tRNA or rRNA. So, the scientists wanted to differentiate or to define a gene in such a way that if somebody takes the word gene, should be able to understand whether it is coding for the RNAs and the proteins or just the RNAs or just the proteins. So they came up with a word which is called as cistron. Now, what is cistron and how is it different from a gene? A cistron is a segment of DNA coding for a polypeptide. So specifically, when I say I'm talking of cistron, that means it gets very clearly communicated that cistron is going to code for a polypeptide chain. But when I say it is a gene, the gene can code for, so gene is a common word. It communicates that the gene codes for, it can code for RNA or it can code for a polypeptide gene, all right. So now the structural gene in a cistron unit is called as monocistronic, mostly in eukaryotes. So eukaryotes you see monocistronic, that means each structural gene will be flanked on either side by a promoter and a terminator gene, and it will code only for one protein. Whereas in prokaryotes, it is polycistronic. Polycistronic means that there are many cistrons which are attached, and one cistron, polycistron, will be flanked with one terminator and one promoter gene. To understand this more, we can see it diagrammatically also. Now, in prokaryotic, the mRNA that is formed is polycistronic. Polycistronic means that it is coding for protein alpha, beta, gamma, and there is one promoter and one terminator sequence. But in eukaryotes, it is monocistronic. That means the coding sequence only codes for this mRNA will translate into only one protein. Not many proteins, but only one protein, and it will be flanked by the promoter and the terminator regions. All right. So this is the difference between polycistronic gene and a monocistronic gene. Now, what are the two complexities that are present in the, what are the two complexities that are present in the eukaryotes? The two additional complexities. So the main process of transcription is same in the prokaryotes as well as the eukaryotes. But there are slight differences, and these differences are very important with respect to your understanding as well as exam point of view also. Now, in eukaryotes, there are two additional complexities. There are at least 3 RNA polymerases in the nucleus. Now, in the prokaryotes, we studied that there is only one RNA polymerase, and that transcribes for all the types of RNA, that is mRNA, tRNA, and rRNA. But in eukaryotes, the different RNAs are produced by different RNA polymerase. For example, now you see that the RNA polymerase 1, Roman 1, transcribes for rRNAs. And what is the Sedberg units? 28S, 18S, and 5.8S. The RNA polymerase 2 transcribes as a precursor of mRNA, that is heterogeneous nuclear RNA. So, in case of eukaryotes, the initial RNA that is formed is called as hnRNA or heterogeneous nuclear RNA. It has to undergo a process of maturation to form the functional mRNA. Then you have the third one is RNA polymerase 3. Roman 3 is responsible for transcription of tRNA, and this tRNA, even the 5S RNA and the small nuclear RNA, these are transcribed by the RNA polymerase 3. Now, the transcription unit on the gene. In eukaryotes, the monocistronic structural genes have interrupted coding sequences. That means the genes in the eukaryotes are split. They are called as the split genes. They are called as the split genes. The coding sequences are express sequences are defined as exons. The exons are said to be those sequences that appear in mature or processed RNA. So, in case of the in case of eukaryotes, the gene is called as a split gene because the mRNA that is produced has exons and introns. Exons are the express sequences, and introns are the intervening sequences. Exons are said to those sequences that appear in mature or processed RNA, and introns or intervening sequences do not appear in the mature or processed RNA. Now, if you see this mRNA or heterogeneous nuclear RNA that is formed by the transcription in eukaryotes, you would see that there are yellow portions and brown portions. Now the yellow portions designate the exons and the brown portion designate the introns. The exons are the expressed regions, expressed genes which will express, and introns are the intervening sequences. So this is how the mRNA is formed, and that is why in the eukaryotes the genes are called as the split genes. Now the next additional complexity in case of the eukaryotes is that the primary transcript contains both the exons and the introns and are non-functional. So the like we saw in the previous diagram, that the mRNA that is formed has both the sequences, the exons and the introns. The exons and the introns are present, and the hnRNA has to undergo 3 processes to become mature. The first one is splicing, where the introns are removed and the exons are joined in a defined order. Alright. The hnRNA undergoes additional processing called as the capping and tailing. What is capping? Capping is an unusual nucleotide, that is methylguanosine triphosphate is added at the 5' end of the hnRNA, and tailing is when the adenylated residues, that is about 200 to 300 adenosine, get added at the 3' end of the mRNA, then it is called as a tailing. Once all these 3 processes are complete, only then the hnRNA, which is a non-functional RNA, becomes the mRNA, which is a functional RNA, and then now it is transported to the cytoplasm. So if you see the entire processing, that is the splicing, capping and tailing in eukaryotes. So if you see that this mRNA that is formed is called as the heterogeneous nuclear RNA, and it is the non-functional RNA. Now this, if you see, has to undergo 3 processes. One is capping. Now if you see, the capping is at the 5' end, and it is by the methylated guanosine triphosphate. That is why M is written methylated guanosine G, and 3 P's are written for triphosphate. And it is attached where? It is attached at the 5' end of the hnRNA. Then it is also going through a process of splicing. In splicing, only the exons have to be retained. That means the yellow portions have to be retained, and introns, which are denoted by the brown portions, they have to be removed. So you can see how splicing takes place. The introns are removed and the exons are ligated together. Alright. So what is, and of course polyadenylation, that means what? A tail of adenosine, about 200 to 300 adenosine are attached to the 3' end. Now why is there an okay, splicing, we understand that introns have to be removed because they are intervening sequences. They do not express any amino acid. All right, but and exons have to be joined. But the question is, why is why is there capping and tailing? Now the reason is that capping and tailing is done to protect the mRNA, because the mRNA is formed in the nucleus. Now it has to travel. To start the translation process, mRNA has to travel from the nucleus to the cytoplasm, and in the cytoplasm there are many enzymes which may digest the mRNA. To protect it from or to prevent it from digestion, this capping and tailing is done. All right. So now we go to the key points of the transcription. Transcription is the first step in gene expression, and it involves copying a gene's DNA sequence to make an RNA molecule. So the codes for particular proteins are present on the DNA. One of the strands of the DNA, which is called as a template strand, will give its codes to the for the formation of the mRNA. Transcription is performed by enzyme which is called as RNA polymerase. You know that in case of prokaryotes, there is only one RNA polymerase which will polymerize or which will help in the transcription of the tRNA and also the mRNA. Whereas the in case of eukaryotes, there are three types of RNAs: RNA1, RNA2, and RNA3. The RNA polymerase 2 is responsible for the transcription of the mRNA or the hnRNA, which after processing becomes the mRNA. Transcription has three stages: initiation, elongation, and termination. And in eukaryotes, RNA molecules must be processed after the transcription. They are spliced and have a 5' cap and a poly A tail put on their end. RNA is controlled separately for each gene in your genome. Now, after transcription follows the process of translation, and translation helps in the formation of the proteins. I have some recap questions for you that quickly we'll go through this. If the DNA template is codes, these are the nitrogenous bases present. When what will be the nitrogenous bases that will be present in the RNA strand? Can you quickly do that? I'm sure you must have done it. Now it is C. Instead of T, A will not complementary base pair with thymine. Instead, in case of RNA, you have uracil. You have uracil there. All right. And recap question 2. It means that what steps are needed to produce a mature RNA? So we just studied what are the three processes which are required to produce the mature RNA. They are splicing, capping, and tailing. Okay, now the recap question 3 is match the following of the current events. So you have RNA polymerase stops transcribing, obviously termination. You can see the answers here. Polymerase stops transcribing, termination. For RNA polymer binds to promoter, it will be initiation. And RNA polymerase adds complementary nucleotides to 3' end of RNA strand, that is elongation. Which are the following of the following is true regarding the process of transcription? DNA polymerases control transcription. Transcription uses both strands of DNA. No, this is wrong because it uses one strand. The three stages of transcription are initiation, eliminate. No, this is also wrong. Transcription occurs for individual genes. Isn't this correct? Yes, so this D answer is correct. Now, with this, we come to an end of the session today. So, we now understand that I hope all of you children must have understood what is the process of transcription. Exam point of view also, this is very important because in the exam in 2020, this year also a 5-marker question has come on transcription. It's a very important concept. All the three sets of the paper had this question on transcription. So it basically you've got to understand that transcription is the first step to gene expression. Is the first step to gene expression where the codes from the DNA are taken to form the mRNA, and from the mRNA it gets translated into a protein or different types of RNAs. All right. So different types of RNAs are formed. Now, transcription process is a process that is a part of the central dogma, where the genetic flow is unidirectional from DNA to mRNA, from mRNA to proteins. So the process, children, I hope it's well understood that the process that leads to the formation of mRNA from DNA is called as transcription. Thank you, children, and I hope this session has been fruitful for you.